Welcome back to Quinta dos Magros. I'm Anna, and in this series we are exploring the daily life of shepherds in biblical times. In the last episode, we look at the shepherd himself, his tools, his meals, and the simple rhythm of life with the flock. Today we turn to the very heart of shepherding, providing food and water. For sheep, just as for people, survival depended on these two things. Without good pasture and reliable water, there could be no flock, and without the flock, no livelihood. One of the shepherd's main responsibilities was to plant food for his animals throughout the year. In the springtime, life was easiest. Green grass appeared, and sheep grazed freely near the village. The fields around the shepherd's home provided plenty of nourishment. But spring never lasts forever. When the grain was harvested and the poor of the village had been given their chance to glean, to gather what was left behind, as the story of Ruth reminds us, then it was time for the shepherd to bring his sheep into the stubble fields. Here, the flock fed on what remains: fresh growth, dried stalks, and the scattered heads of grain that the reapers had missed. Nothing went to waste. Every part of the harvest, from the finest kernels to the roughest stems, served a purpose. When this food was gone, the shepherd had to look farther. He led his sheep to new pastures, sometimes into valleys where streams still encouraged growth, other times out into the wilderness, where only the hardiest grasses remained. The Bible often describes this rhythm of searching for food. Psalm 65 says, "The valleys are covered with grain. They shout for joy. They also sing." And in that most famous psalm of all, Psalm 23, David reflects, "The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures." These words carried weight because everyone knew how precious green pastures were. They meant safety, nourishment, and peace. From an anthropological point of view, this system reflects a subsistence economy, where nothing is wasted and survival depends on careful timing. Grain is for the people, but the leftovers sustain the sheep. And in turn, the sheep provide milk, wool, and meat for the community. Everything is connected, and every season brings its own challenges. Food was vital, but water was even more urgent. In the dry climate of the Holy Land, shepherds depended on wells, springs, and seasonal streams. Sheep cannot survive long without water, and so guiding them to drink was as important as finding pasture. The psalmist's words again capture this image. "He leads me beside still waters." Why still waters? Because sheep are timid. They will not drink from rushing streams where the current startles them. They need calm, quiet pools, water that refreshes without fear. In summer, wells often run low. At these times, shepherds drew water by hand, carrying it to their flocks. Sometimes they rolled back the heavy stones that covered a well, just as we read in the story of Jacob meeting Rachel. These wells were gathering places, not just for water, but for community life. The timing of grazing and watering was also carefully managed. At noon, when the sun was fierce, the sheep could not eat. So the shepherd planned feeding for the cool hours of morning and evening, leading his flock to water at just the right times. Rest was as important as nourishment. After eating and drinking, the flock needed shaded places, valleys or rocky shelters, where they could lie down and regain strength before continuing their journey. Providing food and water was not only a physical task, but also a symbol. A hungry flock grows weak. A thirsty flock cannot endure. The shepherd's care kept the animals alive, but it also revealed his character, his foresight, his tenderness, his devotion. The prophets and poets of Israel saw in this the image of God himself. Just as the shepherd provides green pastures and still waters, so the Lord provides for his people. Isaiah speaks of God leading his flock to rest, and Jesus later calls himself the Good Shepherd who gives his life for the sheep. For people of the Bible, the connection was clear. To know the shepherd's work was to understand God's care. To see sheep drinking in still waters was to glimpse divine provision. Thank you for joining me here at Quinta dos Magros as we explored food and water for the flock in biblical times. For the shepherd, this was daily labor. For the people of Israel, it became a picture of trust in God. In our next episode, we will look at how shepherds protected their sheep from wild animals, thieves, and the dangers of the wilderness. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and share it with others who love rural life, history, and culture. From our homestead here in Portugal, we send you peace and blessings for you and for your flocks.